Okay, everybody, it's time for Icebreakers presented by DoorDash. And of course, we have Frank's trade target board. A new edition is coming up very soon today on the website. So, Frank, I want to do a little trade scuttlebutt with you. We're going to start with the Vegas Golden Knights. So, obviously, we know with the deal moving to Donov, they get a bit more breathing room with the salary cap. But are there any other names you think that could be jettisoned? Who else are they looking to move?
Well, yeah, even though they've found a way to move on from Evgeny Dodonov, the fact of the matter remains that they're still tight up against the cap. And so, one name that I've circled for someone that certainly last year at least did not play up to the level of his pay would be defenseman Alec Martinez. And part of that is through no fault of his own. That injury that he went through really seemed to throw him through a loop. It was a facial I guess the best way to describe it was be a facial injury that also had some concussion-like effects on him. I think a lot of what you saw was concussion-like symptoms that wasn't actually necessarily a concussion itself. And so the Golden Knights had fought hard to keep Martinez a couple years back when he was a pending unrestricted free agent. He re-signed for 3 years times $5.25 million. And now at this point, that's a pretty significant salary for the Vegas Golden Knights. So will they keep Alec Martinez? Will they decide to try and move him? Would a team be interested at that type of cap number, or will Vegas basically be forced to keep a guy like him? I think they're also trying to do some other different things up front. They're trying to keep Riley Smith. That money is going to have to come from somewhere. I believe that they had entered into negotiations with Riley Smith at some point during last season, and they seemed to stall out. I wouldn't be surprised to see them revisit them, but in order to do that and keep Smith, you're going to have to move money elsewhere. And so Martinez is going to be one of the guys, Matt, that's added to our trade targets list later today.
Okay. Another team I'm intrigued by this offseason is the mysterious New York Islanders. We know at the trade deadline, even though they were out of it, they did very little. And it seems like there's a sense they think they can run it back and have a much better season. They were very unlucky last year, of course, with a 13-game road trip to start the season. So Lou Lamoriello is sort of lurking in the weeds. But are there going to be any players thrown overboard in the process? Is there a name in the rumor mill that could be going out of the Islanders?
Yeah, there's one name that has popped up in the rumor mill in recent days, and that's Anthony Beauvillier. And I always caution anyone when it comes to the New York Islanders. Lou Lamoriello he's like getting blood from a stone. He's not going to be giving anyone any sort of information. But from other teams that I spoke to, they have a sense that Beauvillier is available. That the Islanders have gone through this process where they're probably going to be making some changes to their group. We know that they need some help on their back end. They were basically dressing two 40-year-olds to play in their top six last season. They're also a team that has some salary cap constraints given the long-term contracts that they have, given the flat salary cap. And Beauvillier, who played last season in the first year of his deal at $4.15 million, he really took a step backwards last season. And if you look at his career arc, a really talented player that sort of busted into the league and hit 20 goals somewhat quickly in his second year, and you're thinking, okay, this guy's going to continue on this upward trend. And instead, really what he's done is sort of flatline. And I think the big question is Anthony Beauvillier going to be that player that sort of breaks through, or is he going to be sort of exactly what he has shown to be, that sort of 35, maybe 40-point guy if you can get there, and maybe 18, 20 goals if you're lucky, or is there something else there? So I think the Islanders could potentially explore that market to see what kind of value is out there. Are teams as interested in Anthony Beauvillier as potentially some might be, where he could generate some interest?
Okay, keeping it in the Metro Division, let's switch to Pittsburgh and a guy whose name is just, I think, permanently carved into the rumor mill. That's Kasperi Kapanen. Wherever he goes, any point in his career, he's always being traded or part of trade rumors. So what's the latest on Kasperi Kapanen, who, of course, is an RFA?
Well, we were just talking about the Calgary Flames and how there's a pecking order there that exists with Johnny Gaudreau, and then everyone else will have to sort of fall in line. And that's really where things stand with Kasperi Kapanen at the moment. As you mentioned, pending restricted free agent for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're working as hard as they can to get Chris Letang signed. I think after that, the focus is on Evgeny Malkin. After that, the focus is probably on Evan Rodriguez. And so where does that leave Kasperi Kapanen, and how much cap space, if any, will they have after the fact? Now, Kapanen is arbitration eligible, and his qualifying offer is really quite affordable at $2.4 million. And so they can afford to qualify Kasperi Kapanen. The thing is, moving forward, are you worried about what an arbitration award might look like? Is it past the point, when you take a look at his career, such a talented player? The reason why he's entered into the rumor mill at times is because teams are intrigued by a guy that has that sort of higher ceiling that for whatever reason has lacked the consistency in his game to really be that impact player. And so does that award sort of end in the $4.5 million range? Is it closer to four? Where does that end up? That's something the Pittsburgh Penguins need to be wary of. And if they can't afford him or don't have the cap space, well, then they're certainly going to have to move him. But they're going to also have to ask themselves this question, Matt. And part of that is, where will they get the 40 points that Kasperi Kapanen sort of provides for them on a year-to-year basis? It's just one more part of the puzzle that's sort of been complicated in Pittsburgh all offseason long.
It's funny, Frank, seeing Kasperi Kapanen up close in Toronto all these years, I always refer to him as like the person who buys a really fancy sports car and has never owned one before, can't quite handle it. It's got so much speed and ability and it just can't quite finish. You just don't know what to do with it. To me, that's Kasperi Kapanen. All the talent in the world, just has never sort of harnessed the ability to finish. Well, that's it for Icebreakers with Frank. Thank you, Frank. Delivered by DoorDash. And you see the promo code there at the bottom of your screen. That's DFODD in Canada, DFODD US in the United States. That gets you 25% off. No delivery fees on your first order. Great weekend to order some takeout too. Lots of awesome sports on TV and Father's Day, of course, too.